Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome into Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here Friday, April 25th. Good morning to you. Technically, this is the third show of the day. Recorded one late last night, about 1:30 a.m. for y'all, something like that. And then got up, talked about the pick a little bit more, graded the pick. You can go watch those videos. But long story short, Jaguars added a unicorn. They added a player who can play wide receiver, who can play cornerback, can do both of those things at an extremely high level, will elevate the culture in Jacksonville, will elevate the roster in Jacksonville. They got 2 for 1. Now they paid up for it. They absolutely did. If you want to go back and see my entire evaluation of the process, go back and take a look at grading the pick. But right now we're going to preview day 2 of the 2025 NFL draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm really excited for it. Obviously, having that pick at 36 would have made day 2 a lot more exciting to start. But the Jaguars, as James Gladstone likes to say, they are uniquely positioned, in my opinion, to have a really interesting day 2 and 3. They still have 9 picks, and they're slated for 2 picks tonight, which on average, most teams have 2 picks on night 2 of the NFL draft, rounds 2 and 3, right? The Jaguars just have both of those picks in the third round, 70 and 88. Those are the 2 picks slated for tonight. We know James Gladstone. We know what the Rams have done in the past. We know what the Rams did last night, trading out of the first round. The F them picks mindset. And that's really not the entire idea behind it. It's if you have the ability to go add someone that can change your franchise, like legitimately change your franchise. And James Gladstone, the way he put it, was change the course of the sport, by being able to be a two-way player at an extremely high level. So the Jags added wide receiver and corner. We're going to talk about the picks they have. We're going to talk about the needs they still have. At 70 and 88, they could stick there. But they also have 104 and 107. Top of round 4. Top of day 3. So they're uniquely positioned, in my opinion, to potentially be very aggressive. They have lots of ammunition to be very aggressive. And they still have a ton of draft ammunition next year, even though they don't have that first round pick that they gave up for Travis Hunter. They still have a ton of ammunition. And if you look at Travis Hunter and you say, well, he's playing wide receiver and he's playing corner, there's your 2 first-round picks. First-round pick at wide receiver, first-round pick at corner. Both of them are Travis Hunter, and you get them all this year. So I think it's a bold move. I love it. I gave the Jags an A. But you still have 70 and 88 tonight, 104 and 107. So there's a lot of different ways that the Jaguars could move here. They could trade up from 70. They could trade down from 70. Like, let's say the Jaguars think there's 120 players in this class that they feel comfortable with, and they want to make sure that they have another pick in the top 120. They could trade down from 70, maybe into the mid 70s, early 80s, and then get another pick in the top 120 potentially, and then have 5 picks between, arbitrarily, hypothetically, like 75 and 120. So there's a lot they can do. They still have 142, 182, 194, and 221 after those picks we've talked about. So 9 picks left. Lot of different ways the Jaguars can move up and down the board should they see fit. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Even though the Jaguars are not slated to pick till 70, which should be well into the evening tonight, be paying attention. Be locked in. If you want to make sure you're paying attention to when the Jaguars make their pick, it could come at any time. A trade could come at any time. It absolutely could. You saw the Jaguars trade up last year. Excuse me, not the Jaguars. The Rams, James Gladstone, trade up last year to land Braden Fisk. If there's a player they feel strongly about, they will not hesitate to be aggressive. They showed you that last night. James Gladstone and the Rams have shown you that throughout the last decade almost. Plenty of ammo to move up and down. Now, looking at the top needs, in my opinion, and then where those could potentially be filled, I think the top needs are safety And edge 3. Again, you added a wide receiver and a cornerback in Travis Hunter. Safety and edge 3 are the top immediate needs because you signed Eric Murray and he's probably going to start for you. But who's going to start next to him? Savage? Yeah. Antonio Johnson, Andrew Wingard. You need a starting safety. You really do. And you need edge 3. You really need edge 3 and edge 4 probably, but you definitely need edge 3. And the Jags, they'll be very active in undrafted free agency as well. And again, 9 total picks left. You can't address everything this evening, but if you were just going based on need, I think that this evening you would see safety and edge 3. But the Jags aren't going to box themselves in by saying we have to take the position that we need the most with this pick. They're going to take the players they like the best, and they're going to try to position themselves to be able to fill out the roster to the best of their ability, but also to add the players that they want, right? Not settle. So I do think safety and edge 3 are the most important ones right now. Interior defensive line is a future / present need, right? Like, I still strongly believe Eric Armstead playing on the interior going to be a good player for them this year. I still strongly believe that Mason Smith is an ascending young talent. You still have my guy Devon Hamilton and some other guys that could potentially fill in and be role players in certain spots on the interior of the defensive line. So that's a group that I do think you have future needs because I don't know that Devon and Eric are going to be around for all that long, but Mason Smith I certainly think is going to be a fixture in there for the next several years. Then interior offensive line, I think that's kind of in the same boat. Future / present need. Like, could you upgrade? Yes. Ezra Cleveland, I think you could potentially upgrade there. You brought in Patrick McCary and paid him $13 million. He's a starter. Robert Hainsey, he's getting paid starter money, but it's not like big time starter money. So you could potentially upgrade at center or guard with Cleveland and Hainsey, in my opinion. That's possible. I think that guard would be the most likely of the interior group to be addressed. But again, just because these are the top needs does not mean that those are the players that the Jaguars will, or the positions the Jaguars will prioritize this evening or with the next 4 picks. They're going to go get players they want to have on their roster, and they're not going to be put in a box by the positions, right? So I also think running back could be a future need. Forgot to mention that one. Obviously, Travis Etienne going into a contract year. I don't think it's like necessarily an immediate need because I think Etienne and Bigsby can have much more productive seasons in a Liam Cohen offense than they did last year. But yeah, you could potentially upgrade for this year, and you definitely could add somebody in the future because I don't know if you're going to re-sign Travis Etienne moving forward. So, and running back is incredibly deep. Interior defensive line is incredibly deep. I think edge has a lot of good depth. I think safety, we can start at safety because that's where I think you really need a starter. The best remaining players, in my opinion, Kevin Winston, Xavier Watts, Nick Emanwari. So Nick Emanwari, I think he's more of a box safety. He has crazy size, athleticism, explosiveness. He's a little bit stiff in the transition department, so that's what kind of worries me about if you're trying to play him as a true free safety or anything like that. I don't know that the Jaguars are going to do that all that often. But Nick Emanwari, the top guy on the board, he really has no chance of being there in the Jaguars' current selections. But again, you never know with these Jaguars how aggressive they will be. So definitely an interesting player to watch. But I do think like Kevin Winston Jr., Xavier Watts, Andrew Makuba make a lot of sense for them. Jonas Sanker could make sense as well. He's got some length and athleticism, and I think he's a good football player out of Virginia. You look at Billy Bowman Jr., he's the most fascinating one to me because I feel very strongly about Xavier Watts and Andrew Makuba for the Jaguars. I think they would be great fits. I think Kevin Winston is going to be a very good football player coming off of injury out of Penn State. But the one that really is fascinating to me is Billy Bowman because Bowman, he legitimately might be the best coverage safety in this class. Right? He might be. Outside of Malachi Starks, he might be the best coverage safety. He really struggles to tackle. So how do you foil that? I'm not sure. Where do you value that? I'm not sure. But if you're just looking for somebody who can make plays in the passing game, Billy Bowman is definitely that guy. And he could make sense in the range that the Jaguars have picks tonight. So that's going to be one to watch, I think. Now you look at edge 3. And again, where do you value taking edge 3? Because you have Trayvon and you have Josh, and those guys are obviously going to be stalwarts for you. I'm not sure. There's some guys that I think will definitely be off the board that are on the board currently. I think Donovan Ezraku should have been a first-round pick. I think Nick Scorton should have been a first-round pick. The rest of the guys, it makes sense that they're going to be day 2 range here that are on the board. Jordan Birch is kind of this hulking athletic freak edge presence. I don't know that he's ever going to be an elite pass rusher, but somebody who can definitely potentially be a starter in the NFL. Not really the mold that the Rams have looked for in recent years, and maybe not the type of change-up that I think the Jaguars really need. And Liam Cohen did talk about adding someone who can rush with a different pass rush plan than the guys they currently have and have a little bit of a different skill set. Who could fit that bill? I'll tell you what, Josiah Stewart. I think they're going to love Josiah Stewart because, again, he is smaller out of Michigan. Definitely more of it. And he didn't test well. He had a very poor 40-yard dash, but you're not talking about a first-round pick here. You're talking about a day 2 pick. So I think you can say, look, we're going to trust the tape on this one. Very explosive off the ball. Speed rusher, but he also has that key trait that Liam Cohen brought up, needs to also be able to set the edge. Josiah Stewart plays like a madman out there trying to defend the run. So I think that's somebody the Jaguars will absolutely love. I think Braden Swinson could be an option for them. I don't think Femi Oladejo falls into a territory that they're going to be able to nab him, but definitely somebody I think they would like. I think if you're comparing guys to Jared Verse last year, the 2 most comparable skill sets, I think, are Femi Oladejo and Nick Scorton. Just going to put that out there. I like both of those guys a lot. I like Josiah Stewart a lot. I think Braden Swinson and Princely Umanmielen project to be guys that could be really good designated pass rushers early on in their career. I'm a huge fan of Ashton Gelati out of Louisville. He is definitely a different body type than what the Jaguars currently have, more of a squatty, shorter, low to the ground, natural leverage, but wins with explosiveness and power and effort. He'd be a fun guy. Kyle Kennard, who won Defensive Player of the Year in college, that award, I can't remember what it's called, but basically Defensive Player of the Year. I think he could potentially be a fit. I think after that, you're probably looking at day 3. There's some more guys that could be interesting. Tyler Barron could sneak into day 2 with his kind of physical traits. Q Robinson out of Alabama is a fun one. He's explosive, long, good athlete. Didn't get on the field a ton because Alabama always has just blue chip guys across the board, it feels like. But when he was on the field, productive, and then I think that he's impressed throughout the process overall. David Walker, lower to the ground type of guy as well, but very, even though he's short, he's like 260. He is strong, he's physical, he's explosive, somebody to keep an eye on. I think after that, you're definitely talking about day 3. So we can move on from edge here and look at interior defensive line, which again, I think is could they survive and actually have a good interior line group with the guys they have this year? Probably, but I think you definitely need to try to address it for the future at the very least. Darius Alexander, I think, is going to come off the board very quickly, but this class is so deep and with so many different archetypes of players, it's really going to depend on what teams are looking for. And so there's guys that maybe they could be there when the Jags pick or in the range for the Jaguars to trade up if they love them. I think TJ Sanders is a tremendous fit. I doubt he gets into that range. I think Omar Norman Lott is a tremendous fit. Both of these guys are just so explosive up the field. I think that's what the Jaguars could really use. Alfred Collins, if you want run defense, he's going to give it to you. Joshua Farmer, high upside guy out of Florida State. Would be very interesting to see another Florida State Seminole come to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ty Robinson, high effort, high motor, unbelievably explosive moving forward, has worked well on games and stunts up front at Nebraska. So another one to watch. JJ Pegues, you want to talk about playing both sides of the ball? He might be able to do it. He played defensive tackle and a little bit of fullback, running back, tight end, whatever you want to do on the Ole Miss offense. So that's an interesting one too. Vernon Broughton out of Texas, who is the running mate, obviously, of Alfred Collins. Both of those guys were playing behind some impressive defensive tackles last year. I think Aeneas Peebles is a big time fit for the Jaguars in that three tech type of role. You've seen Jay Toei mocked to them, I think, by Dane Brugler. Big interior defensive lineman out of UCLA. I think CJ West could be a potential value. I think he should sneak into day 2 of this draft out of Indiana. So, and Jamari Caldwell, Jordan Phillips, these guys, yeah. So there's so many options for the Jaguars when it comes to interior defensive line and edge. I think that you could definitely see them go in that direction at some point on day 2. If you're looking at center of the future, Robert Hainsey, to me, he is a replacement level starter, but he raises the floor a little bit for you, as the Jaguars like to say. Jared Wilson definitely has the projection to be a really solid NFL center. Only started for 1 year, but he's a great athlete. He's got the size, everything you're looking for. I think the tape is pretty strong for a 1 year starter. For Jared Wilson out of Georgia, that's somebody you could keep an eye on. I think Marcus Mbow you could keep an eye on as well as a potential center for the Jaguars of the future. And these guys could be on the fast track with their athleticism and traits to get into the starting lineup. Seth McLaughlin had a pretty big injury this year for Ohio State, but I think he projects as a starter as well at the next level at center. Interior offensive line, offensive guard specifically. Jonas Avenay has been kind of a popular name to the Jaguars. To me, there's undeniable physical traits and like high level tape, but there's also a lot of times where I just see him giving up his chest too often. He's got the length and the strength to be able to protect himself, to protect that chest. I don't know why you don't see that more on tape. So that's the one thing that kind of worries me about him. Tate Ratledge, I think, would be a fantastic addition to the Jaguars' interior offensive line. I think he probably could start sooner rather than later at guard. Miles Frazier would probably be a future starter at guard. I don't think he's probably going to be, getting into the starting lineup over Ezra Cleveland, certainly not Patrick McCary. Wyatt Milam is one that I'd be a little bit wary of. Played tackle at West Virginia, but really struggled at the Senior Bowl when he was converting down into guard. Dylan Fairchild, probably more of a day 3 pick. I don't know how great of an athlete he is overall out of Georgia, but he has got that dog in him, literally. I mean, this guy plays with a nasty temperament. So I think those are the guys you can really look at probably on day 2, potentially on the interior of the offensive line. You look at running back. I would love to see Travion Henderson in Jacksonville. Such a big fan of his game. Cam Scatabo would be really interesting. Dylan Sampson's got some explosiveness. Devin Neal's a very balanced back. DJ Giddens, one of my favorite guys. Jordan James, RJ Harvey. Damian Martinez. Love Damian Martinez. Kyle Monungai, Trevor Etienne. I mean, this is one of the deepest running back classes you're going to find. So you can definitely find a running back on day 2 or day 3 if you're looking for it. And then the last position I wanted to kind of talk to y'all about is wide receiver, because even though you have Travis Hunter, after the 2025 season, you don't have a lot on the roster. And you might not need it because you have your 2 guys. You have Brian Thomas Jr., you have Travis Hunter. But they could put – I would be surprised if they did it tonight. But I think somebody could definitely sneak in on day 3 for them. And there's going to be a lot of good guys potentially available. I know, a fan favorite here in Jacksonville is Pat Bryant, who's from Jacksonville, played at Illinois. Would be interesting to see him come back. And we can talk about day 3 guys more tomorrow and kind of probably skip out on wide receiver today in all likelihood. I think that's going to be how it plays out. But that's going to do it for this day 2 preview. Again, the Jaguars can be aggressive. They can move back if they want to. They've got the ammunition to really do whatever they want. They have several team needs, and I think they have a lot of great options to potentially address those needs. And again, I don't think they're going to box themselves into this draft for need scenario. If they have a player they absolutely love that they can see a pathway for in the next year or two, they're going to add that player to this roster. And as James Gladstone said, don't be scared. Don't be scared, Jags fans. Be excited about the future here in Jacksonville. I think it's bright with James Gladstone, Liam Cohen, Tony Baselli, and now Travis Hunter added to the mix. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Have a good one.